In a street not too far from you lives Jane. She's felt tired for some time, sometimes scared about the future and sometimes angry. Since the lockdown, she's often had to work 13-hour shifts 3 days in a row. When home, she also has to look after her mum. She's 81 and recently moved in because the family couldn't afford the rent rise. She has a lung condition, so fresh air is good, but in her part of town, there aren't many parks. Despite the talk of new heroes, Jane knew the economy didn't really care about people like her. But there's another reason Jane and so many others have been tired: the dark cloud. It had been there for some years, and although not everyone knew what was creating it, it's got bigger and harder for people to ignore since the pandemic. 3 doors down lives Dan. He'd been working in the gas sector, mostly on short-term contracts. Recently, he lost his job after taking issue with an even worse conditions contract. He's not eligible for government support schemes, so he's stressed about how to keep up rent. That morning was the first time Jane and Dan spoke. Each understood they were not alone in their difficulties. Jane had heard about a mutual aid group set up by locals during COVID to help each other get by. She invited Dan along. There they found local people talking about and getting involved in a big set of changes. While politicians were talking about economic growth, here people were talking about laying the foundations for a deeply fairer and greener society, building a caring economy. A caring economy would transform how we value the work society depends on, like care and health work. People like Jane wouldn't have to face impossible conditions at work. She'd feel valued and respected in society, have more time, and be able to get help at home to look after her mum. It would create green jobs, not only in renewable energy, as care work is also low carbon, and prioritise the well-being of millions of adults and children over abstract economic targets. Dan and Jane began to tell others about the plan for this set of changes, which now had a name: Green New Deal. The plan could create millions of secure, unionised green jobs, in reaching 100% renewable energy and rolling out mass home insulation programmes, so everyone can afford to stay warm in winter, while getting the country on track to reach zero carbon on time. By getting involved, Dan and Jane felt some of their energy return and realised they didn't have to accept precarious jobs or impossible hours. Jane now sees how many other people are trying to cope with the dark cloud, even if not everyone sees the truth about what is creating it. She wants to know why we don't already have a Green New Deal and why everyone is still struggling. Could it be the dark cloud that is somehow obscuring the leaders' ability to look at alternatives? Or is it the system itself? More of us are asking similar questions. COVID showed big changes can be made where there's political will. A Green New Deal to change the system would change how resources are shared, provide a minimum amount of basic services everyone needs for free, helping protect everyone from future crises. A Green New Deal could put essential supplies like energy and water back in public ownership, so they operate for the benefit of people and nature instead of profit, and subsidise public transport so it's always cheaper than driving. Some people have been worried, like Dan had once been, that climate action would cost them their jobs. But the Green New Deal we need means a just transition, meaning people in high carbon sectors like Dan would get reskilling and a green jobs guarantee. We now realise that a Green New Deal isn't just about cutting CO2 or switching energy sources. It should also be a plan to start to change the economic system, and the story about what the goals of the economy are, in whose interests it's run, and who gets a say. Although our leaders have talked about changes, the solutions most of them have backed are inadequate or false. But more and more of us are concluding that continuing the same old system of extraction, ever-increasing speed and growth for the profit of a few is like shoveling fuel into a runaway train. As the lockdowns ease and more workers and communities are organising, more of our leaders are having to take notice. to finally see how close the precipice really is, and that a plan as big as a Green New Deal might be the only way to avoid it. Have you met Jane or Dan? They probably live closer than you think. Imagine how their lives and yours could be transformed. We don't yet know if this change of track will be taken, or if the Green New Deal we need will become reality. But if enough of us get behind it, we have the power to make it happen and begin to put an end to the dark cloud.